Welcome to the Dean's Forum here at Johns Hopkins University SAIS. I'm Kent Calder, Interim Dean here at SAIS, and our guest today is Tokyo Governor Yuriko Koike. As was noted earlier on the slide, this is pre-recorded because of the time differences with Tokyo and the governor's schedule. But as you will see, it is a lively discussion. We did the discussion, I'm live now, of course, but we did this discussion Monday evening, US time, or Tuesday morning, Tokyo time. Before I get into the discussion with Governor Koike, I did want to preface it just by saying a few words about the importance of cities in international affairs today. Historically, of course, if we go back to the Middle Ages, leagues of cities such as the Hanseatic League that included a number of cities across the Baltic, but also, of course, London was very important in international affairs. There are periods, of course, in Eurasian history when the Silk Road cities, including Samarkand, Bukhara, all the way from China across to Europe, were extremely important. It really wasn't until the Treaty of Westphalia in the middle of the 17th century that nation states became so clearly the center point of the international system. Now, of course, for the last 300 years and more, nation states have been central, and they're not going away anytime soon. That said, however, the importance of cities is rising, both because of the difficulties by national governments in solving broad problems that citizens care about, like the environment, or transportation, or even aspects of personal security or health care on the one hand. So the weaknesses of national governments or the unwillingness to deal with problems, as we have seen graphically in many advanced nations in the last 5 or 10 years. That is one problem. On the other side, of course, cities do have, as we'll see in today's dialogue as well, particular strengths. They're in some ways, they're closer to the people, they're close to the grassroots. They also can deal in important ways with issues like the environment. 70% or so of CO2 emissions in much of the world come from cities. So they're a large piece as we wait for the opening of COP26 in Glasgow. Of course, much of the world is very conscious of the emissions problem and the role of global cities potentially in dealing with that. You'll see Governor Koike talking about Tokyo's, the ways in which it's addressing the problem of global warming. But it's not only that. Others, the transportation issue, healthcare issues. So cities do have their unique strengths. And this has been manifest in the United States in the innovative policies of people like former Mayor Michael Bloomberg in New York City, many other mayors across the country, the emergence of city organizations like the C40, which currently Governor Koike actually is the vice chair. So are we moving back to a new world, similar in a few ways to the Middle Ages, with the strength of cities becoming greater? The question is out there. And in that context, we wanted to present this dialogue with Governor Koike. So As I mentioned, this is pre-recorded, but I think you'll find it quite lively and interesting, as I did, and revealing about the rising importance of cities in international affairs. So with that, looking forward, we're all looking forward, I think, to hearing the dialogue with Governor Yuriko Koike, who has had a distinguished career in Japanese politics across the past several years. Thanks very much. Welcome to the Dean's Forum here at Johns Hopkins University SAIS in Washington, D.C. I'm Kent Calder, Interim Dean here at SAIS, and our guest today is Tokyo Governor Yuriko Koike, someone whom I have known and respected for many years. Yuriko, it's really good to see you.
Thank you.
As we're on Zoom, thank you indeed. As we're on Zoom today, which is just a little bit like television, it reminds me a bit of when I met you first, which I recall was on your Fuji TV program. I was a lecturer at Harvard doing research on energy in those days and was so impressed that there were people in the Japanese media, figures like you, who'd studied at Cairo University and spoke Arabic. How many Japanese Cairo University alumni were there in Tokyo in those days?
Very rare.
Yeah, I dare say. Yes, it was. I'm sure it was. You know, then too, I remember when I was with U.S. Embassy Tokyo, working with several of our ambassadors, and of course, it got awfully hot in the summer, and we were wearing ties, and then we were wearing coats on top of that, and it was very, very hot. And then suddenly you created Cool Biz. And I'm sure it's not just me, but there are an awfully lot of people who appreciated that. I certainly remember that one as well.
Thank you.
Another special set of memories I have concerns your visits to Washington, receptions at the Park Hyatt when you were defense minister, Ever May out in Georgetown and elsewhere. You always had important things to say on national security and the US-Japan alliance, especially as defense minister. But I remember that you balanced that with a strong appreciation of the environment. You gave away, some of the presents were green colored, I remember. And you always had the environment there together with major issues of national security. That's something that I remember as well. You've served in such a variety of important roles as the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor, as Minister of the Environment, and as Defense Minister, and of course now as Governor of Tokyo, and who confronted an enormous pandemic challenge and then successfully staged just this past summer, the Tokyo Olympics. Governor, we look forward to your remarks. Thank you for joining us.
May I start?
Please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Karuda Sensei. Long time no see, but I'm so delighted to be invited to this Dean's Forum today. And I would also like to say thank you very much for sending me beautiful flowers. Now, hello everyone, I'm Koike Yuriko, Governor of Tokyo. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude for the opportunity to give this lecture here. And Dean Calder Kent is a political scientist who is deeply knowledgeable regarding Japan and has provided many pertinent critiques about Japanese politics. And this year's edition of Global Political Cities, Actors and Arena of Influence of International Affairs covers 15 cities around the world, including Tokyo. Thank you very much. And I emphasizes the fact that cities are better at working on global issues than nations. Yes, yes, that's right, sometimes. And I'm honored to have this chance to talk with him. Thank you very much. Now, I think many of you watched the Tokyo 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games held this summer. Uh, Calder sensei, you enjoyed the Olympic and the Paralympic this summer? Yes?
Yes, of course,
Thank
definitely.
you. And even now, the memories and thrills of seeing the athletes' amazing performances are fresh in my mind. And I think that the games brought a sense of both courage and excitement to people of the world who have been feeling cut off due to the COVID-19 situation. And as you may know, the games were postponed for a year and held without spectators. This was an unusual thing. But even in the midst of unprecedented adversity, we received support and cooperation from people all over the world. Through this, Turkey has written a new page in the history of the Olympics and Paralympics with our high-level management capabilities and through infection control measures. And the experience of hosting the games successfully is something we will always treasure and look back on with pride. Currently, we are facing two major crises, COVID-19 and climate change. And even though we are currently still in a crisis, it is important that we envision the image of future city that overcomes difficulties and strategically moves forward. And Tokyo, like many cities around the globe, has been making every effort to recover from the fatigue brought on by COVID-19, both socially and economically, all while increasing the effectiveness of our infection control measures. And we are not simply returning to a pre-COVID society. The experience of hosting the Tokyo 2020 Games has left a significant legacy. We plan to use this legacy as a basis for promoting a sustainable recovery that will allow residents to live sustainable lifestyles while also responding to climate change and creating a better future. For this to happen, it is important for Tokyo to develop further toward this sustainable recovery. And I would like to take this opportunity to explain about the sustainable Tokyo that we are aiming for. One of the pillars is to create a society rich in caring and consideration for others. During the games, it was the people, including the athletes and volunteers, that were the most amazing sight for me. Furthermore, the Paralympics, who have gone beyond their own limitations, have shown that even though each and every one of us is different, we all have the power to overcome difficulties and shine in our own ways. The games reaffirmed and strengthened my belief of doing whatever it takes to get something done. With a crisis management plan, we can protect the lives of the residents of Tokyo from whatever may come, and it is the development of the legacies of the games that will lead to a future where each person's own individuality can shine. Above all, we must work to remove the many physical, institutional, and psychological barriers that remain stuck in our society and create a society without obstacles. This can take the form of not just physical structures, but also as a society that is filled with kindness and consideration for others, where it is easy to naturally reach out to people in need of support. I would also like for the legacy of the courage and excitement each Paralympian brought to continue into the future. With this thought in mind, we will further promote parasports by prioritizing the availability of convenient locations and fostering the human resources to support them. I expect that parasports will take root across Tokyo. At the time, at the at the Tokyo Games, more than 200 LGBTQ athletes participated, the highest number in history. All around the world, sexual minorities fervently desire to live their own lives in their own way, regardless of factors such as age, gender, or disabilities. People should be able to spread their wings and fly. Tokyo will aim to create such an environment where people can thrive. Another pillar of sustainable urban development is the fusion of nature and convenience. During the Games, many competition venues, as well as the Olympic and Paralympic Village, were located in the Tokyo Bay Area. This location is blessed with natural waterside beauty, as you see. In addition, there are many commercial and entertainment facilities as well as other attractive spots. That beauty of the cityscape from the village attracted a great deal of attention from around the world on social media. Also, during the Games, hydrogen produced through the use of renewable energy in Fukushima was utilized to power parts of the Olympic and Paralympic Village, including athlete lodgings. Following the Games, the former village site will be equipped with hydrogen filling stations in collaboration with the private sector. These facilities will supply fuel cell bus and create a supply of hydrogen to this district. And this will be the first residential housing area with full-scale hydrogen infrastructure in place and be utilized as the common areas of the newly built condominiums. In addition, while promoting the implementation of cutting-edge technology, we will make this entire town into a showcase, creating an area that continuously produces new value. And this year, 2021, the world was shocked to see images such as New York submerged by a violent hurricane. Japan also has suffered great damage from typhoons and heavy rains. It is said that global warming is the cause of many of the major disasters that have occurred throughout the world. Just this month, we saw that the Nobel Prize in Physics was jointly awarded to Dr. Shukuro Manabe of Princeton University, along with a three-member research team, which laid the foundations for describing the mechanisms that cause global warming. Research such as this starkly illustrates how the climate change crisis poses a threat to humankind. As Dr. Calder introduced me, that I was Minister of Defense and Minister of the Environment. By those foundations, I have taught at Chuo University many years ago the climate security, about the climate security, because national security and climate security is related each other, and we have to pay more attention to climate security in order to secure the nation and globe. Now, COP26 will be held in the UK starting on the coming 31st, but we have no time left to waste in the face of this climate crisis. The metropolitan government has made a zero-emission Tokyo declaration to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050, and I think the 10 years leading up to 2030 will be extremely important. By 2030, we will reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Tokyo by 50% compared with year 2000 levels. In order to realize this so-called carbon hub, we aim to reduce energy consumption by 50% and at the same time increase the ratio of renewable energy power consumption to 50% of the total. About 70% of CO2 emissions in the city come from buildings. And Tokyo has introduced an urban cabin trade system that started in 2010, a world first. This is an innovative initiative that imposes total carbon reduction obligations on large-scale businesses and office buildings, including existing buildings. And in 2019, we achieved a significant reduction of 27% in greenhouse emissions compared to the base emission level. Since then, we have provided advice in this field to New York City based on our experience. In order to realize our carbon hub goal, all institutions must accelerate their actions according to their roles and responsibilities. The metropolitan government will work towards further strengthening and expanding the current stipulations of the Tokyo environmental ordinances that encompass their energy supply and demand. The damage caused by the climate change crisis knows no borders, and global unity of cities around the world is absolutely necessary in order to respond to it. During the Games, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, TMG, held the Sustainable Recovery Tokyo Forum, also called Restart, in August this year. And this was an international conference in which cities of 5 continents from Los Angeles to Paris participated, and the Sustainable Recovery Tokyo Declaration was adopted. This was a wide-reaching declaration to the world regarding efforts being made towards a sustainable recovery. And additionally, in order to further disseminate the effective climate change measures that have originated from Tokyo, we held the Time to Act Climate Action Forum on the 14th of this month. With Time to Act as our motto, we share Tokyo's knowledge and experience. We will continue to contribute to global decarbonization efforts. In regard to decarbonization, we must revitalize green finance in order to ensure the capital necessary for such massive infrastructure efforts. In 2017, the metropolitan government issued the first green bonds for our local governments in Japan. This was used to fund heat-shielded and water-retaining pavements for roads to counter the heat island effect. In addition, we have been driving Japan's green finance industry in collaboration with the private sector by establishing the Tokyo ESG Fund in 2019. The metropolitan government has been revising the global financial city Tokyo vision with the concept of the Tokyo Green Finance Initiative, or TGFI, which will serve as a strategic project for the development of green finance in our city. And through this mechanism, we will simultaneously promote the greening of Tokyo's urban system as well as financial system in order to improve people's lives and achieve sustainable economic development. The existence of select cities around the world is the driving force for the growth of entire nations. Tokyo, with its rich variety of lifestyles and being the nation's capital, plays such a role in Japan. Our city, which successfully held the Olympics and Paralympics, even during the COVID pandemic, has drawn further attention from around the world. And recently, readers voting in the Reader's Choice Awards 2021 conducted by Condé Nast Traveler ranked Tokyo as the number one city in the world in the US edition after a 2-year hiatus. In the UK edition, Tokyo was selected as number one in their best city ranking for the first time. Oh, the Tokyo that was selected is a city that is looking to a world beyond the COVID pandemic, striving for a sustainable recovery while continuing to attract more people, goods, capital, and information. Tokyo is a city with a diverse conglomeration of resources that already continues to create innovation and will continue to evolve towards the future. And this is the end of my speech, and thank you very much. Well, one thing I would like to correct that the first time that I met you was not Fuji TV, but Nippon TV. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my apologies. I do remember it was TV, and because we're on Zoom, it reminds me just a little bit of that. Over the years,
Yes.
well, I also remember that TV Tokyo at a certain point as
Oh,
well.
yes, that was,
Yeah,
yes, the
that's
World Business Satellite.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, I just have to say, from your remarks just now, it impresses me once again. You have been so creative and you've been so innovative. The financial sector, green finance, is certainly an example of that. And, it's tremendously important from a global point of view as well as we approach COVID 26. I think everyone realizes and applauds, at least the people that I know and respect. They certainly appreciate that. If I might, I had just a few questions about
Yes.
your remarks, and some of them are really, the answers might be implicit in what you've just said, but I'm wondering if you could remind some of our audience some of the ways in which you think global city Tokyo, where you've been so innovative, could be made a more comfortable place for foreigners to visit, work, and live. Of
Mm.
course, since it's a global financial center, it already has a large foreign population, but global Tokyo, I suppose, may well become even more international. And what are you thinking about the margin to make things even more comfortable?
Well, of course, as you know, that Tokyo itself has a population of about 14 million, which makes up about 10% of the total population of Japan and generates about 20% of the country's gross domestic product, which came to about 107 trillion yen or $940 billion in 2019. The scale of Tokyo's metropolitan budget exceeds the entire national budget of Sweden.
Hmm.
And Tokyo is a safe and secure city with a well-developed infrastructure and sound security. I think everyone says that's right. Our city has received worldwide recognition for public safety, and also it is also a city with clean air and water, tasty water, boasting a world-class, comfortable urban environment. And Tokyo is also a fun, appealing city with a variety of local arts and culture as well as traditional culture. And we have the philosophy of old meets new, which creates a unique appeal, blending tradition with new cultural trends. And Tokyo has the largest number of Michelin star ranked restaurants in the world. And we are also working to create a world standard business environment. We have set up a business development center, Tokyo, for all foreign companies who are considering expanding into Tokyo. And here we provide English consultation for a wide range of foreign companies regarding business matters and advice about living in the city. And by utilizing the National Strategic Special Zone system, we are working to promote the development of multilingual friendly service apartments, medical facilities, international schools, and other necessities to meet the needs of international residents. And also important thing that the Japanese tax system was an issue for financial firms and highly skilled personnel looking to enter Japan. And the TMG has issued a request to the national government to revise the tax system.
Mhm.
And this year, various measures have been taken by the national government, such as reducing the burden created by corporate income and inheritance taxes.
Mm.
And, and talking about tourism, we are also working to improve the environment for acceptance of foreign tourists. We are expanding tourist information centers and training tourism volunteers. In addition, we are continuing with efforts to upgrade information signage with multiple language, not only in Japanese, utilization, interpretation apps, and supporting lodging facilities and restaurants for travelers with a diversity of customs and cultures. And we are promoting the development of the free Wi-Fi and digital signage that can also be utilized in the event of emergencies or disasters. And it was extremely regrettable that we could not welcome visitors to the Tokyo 2020 Games. However, through our efforts to successfully host the Games, Tokyo is continuing to evolve. I'm looking forward to welcoming our visitors back to Tokyo. I hope I'm looking forward to see you here in
Yeah,
Tokyo as
that's
well.
nice of you to say. Needless to say, I and of course many of my colleagues would love to be back and see all
Yes,
of the innovations that you have done.
please back.
Uh, one thing too in that regard that it is striking to me. Of course, you have innovated in ways that are of interest to Americans, but also you've had a very global sense. Your, of course, your sensitivity to the Middle East, to the Gulf, to Europe, to many other parts of the world as well, which I think is terribly important. If I might, another area, you mentioned the pandemic just now, which of course has really changed our lives so much. And I just wondered how it has changed your own vision of what Tokyo ought to be from what you'd felt before. You did an enormous number of things at the beginning of your tenure, but then we've had this terrible pandemic. Are you thinking differently about Tokyo now, or just continuing with what you were thinking before?
Well, the COVID-19 brought dramatically change in our mindset. And from the experience gained during the pandemic, I personally reaffirm the importance of thorough crisis management to protect the invaluable lives of all of Tokyo's residents. And it is a vital responsibility for me as governor of Tokyo under any and all circumstances. And Tokyo is a city with a population, as I told you, of 14 million mega city. And to tackle this pandemic is very difficult in such a mega city. We have encouraged each and every person to practice through prevention measures such as wearing masks and washing hands in an effort to keep infections low. I think some years ago, only Japanese and gangsters wearing masks. But today, the people of the world are wearing masks. That changes the
Hard in the
uh,
United States. People,
yes.
you're right. People didn't like it over here much.
So I feel that our efforts have been supported by Tokyo's social norms and high public health awareness. And in comparison with other cities around the globe, the number of infections and deaths per capita has been kept low. And people 12 years of age and over who have been vaccinated at least once is now around 80%. And the number of new infection is declining daily. And I would like to express my sincere thanks to Medical Works and the citizens of Tokyo. Also, one more thing I'd like to stress that the pandemic has triggered a change in people's consciousness, as I told you. There is now an increased need for more flexibility in areas such as the progress of telework and diversity of lifestyles. The metropolitan government has called on businesses in Tokyo to utilize telework and has strongly promoted the practice. And this will contribute to higher productivity in Tokyo, as well as allowing for a variety of work style. Now, communication is very important in Japan, but people came to know that the more productive lifestyle is needed. And in addition, the pandemic has had a great influence on the state of our city. And Tokyo, with an eye to long-term planning, aims to create sustainable urban development through the implementation of the philosophy of, of a sustainable recovery. And one more thing I would like to add that we will enhance Tokyo's potential with the power of digitalization and realize a smart Tokyo where all residents can enjoy a high quality of life. An operation information for services like subways have been the first to be digitalized, and together with the conversion of public transportation data to open source data, applications that notify users of real-time operation data and train congestion are being made available. So this makes it possible to commute to work while avoiding congestion and thereby using the power of digitalization in the new normal environment brought about by the pandemic. And we will also promote the intelligent utilization of data held by the government and private companies. We aim to create an environment where such data leads to the provisioning of various services and allows for the realization of satisfying life as well as a convenient one.
Well, you've done some extraordinary things. I think there's no question about that as a global agenda setter in some of the areas that, of course, are so terribly important to our cities and also to the world, and have tremendous positive implications for environment and so on, as we said. And now, I'm sure some of these ideas are things that you have, or that the people of Tokyo and specialists in Japan have innovated themselves. Others, perhaps, you exchange with other parts of the world. The question I really wanted to ask is, what sort of international leaders network do you find especially useful in promoting the global interests of Tokyo? The reason I ask is, as you know, I've felt recently, of course, national governments are certainly important, and yet innovation in some of the areas that are most important to citizens, for example, the environment, transportation, even certain areas of public welfare, security, are really the cities are in the vanguard. And just as you've said, Tokyo is in the vanguard. So what kinds of organizations or what kind of personal networks internationally are helping you to play this role? I think you're vice chair of C40, aren't you, or
Oh,
something
yes,
like that?
yes, yeah, okay. Well, cities are on the front lines of the challenges faced by by humanity because we are much closer to the citizens than the national government, and cities can share their knowledge and know-how and as reposition, repositories of knowledge propose solutions to threats relevant to all people, such as the COVID-19 pandemic and the climate change crisis. And cooperation between cities can be extremely important. Uh, in August this year, we hosted the Sustainable Recovery Tokyo Forum. As I told you, it's called Restart as a starting point for embarking on sustainable recovery with the world. And Mayor Garcetti of Los Angeles and Mayor Hidalgo of Paris attended this forum. And we are considering launching a new network for cities to share their knowledge and experience. And on the 14th this month, Tokyo hosted another conference, Time to Act Climate Action Forum, with the support of the C40, which I am vice chair, as you said. And I would like to share the results of this conference at C40 and COP26 in the future. C40's C means cities. And the number of cities participating in this network is almost 100. Yes, it's expanding. And New York City became Tokyo's first sister city in 1960, and ever since then, we have been engaged in a number of exchanges. And as I mentioned earlier, we are currently providing New York City with the knowledge gained from our cap and trade system. And as for London, in 2017, we signed a financial agreement with the City of London. And it is my hope that we can continue to work together with each other to build sustainable cities because we can share solutions and know-hows and experiences. So
Yeah.
this is very important.
Well, it's stirring to me to see this unfolding, this new role for cities. Of course, if we go back to the Middle Ages, to the Hanseatic League or a Silk Road or things like that, cities were very important, but then their role declined and they were always in the shadow of nations, and nations, of course, are important, but exactly as you've said, cities have been getting much more innovative, and you have been at the vanguard, and that is very impressive. A lot of us are tremendously impressed and heartened by that. So I just wanted to thank you sincerely for giving us some ideas on how you passed through the pandemic. You came out on the other side with a lot of new ideas and playing a global role that certainly is inspiring to all of us. And I do hope, as you said earlier, that the pandemic is wanes soon and it's easier to travel. I personally look forward to getting back to Tokyo and seeing some of the things that you all in Tokyo were doing. And of course, we look forward to your role as a global leader in many ways in the future as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I missed Washington, D.C. I hope to see you soon in
You're
Washington,
warmly
D.C.
welcome anytime that you come.
Please give my best regards to many of my friends in D.C. Thank
I
you.
think you will. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
I can't start it.
I know, he can't get on. Unmute yourself. Okay.
It's I think you've enjoyed the remarks that we've just heard from Governor Koike just as much as I did in the original dialogue, of course, which was this past Monday evening, Eastern time. Just a few comments and reactions that I had to all of those, in addition to what I've just mentioned. As you'll recall, Governor Koike stresses the interdependence in the relationship of environment and national security. She served as minister, of course, of both, Minister of the Environment and also Minister of Defense, as well as National Security Advisor. So the ways that climate change, the ways that the rising seas, the implication for island states, the implications for cities that are on the edge of the seas, and broadly, of course, the implications for human security. Certainly, I think that is one major point that she stresses again and again. She gave us a number of ideas about policy changes, concrete policy innovations that Tokyo is undertaking, relating to parasports, for example, the use of hydrogen infrastructure, in which both Tokyo and Japanese cities generally, of course, are proceeding quite rapidly. They've had a number of recent major international conferences involving dialogues with New York City, with London, with Paris, with Los Angeles, just to name a few. In finance, Tokyo has also been innovative in terms of the development of green bonds, also finance for small businesses, and fintech, or digitalization of finance as well. So the final thing I guess I would say, and perhaps you all have agreed with this, is that as cities become more innovative in their ideas, that the value of international exchange, of international dialogue, of sharing experiences, sharing best practices becomes increasingly important. Governor Koike talked about a network of cities, a network to share their experiences with best policy, as Tokyo and New York have been sharing regarding cap and trade policies, for example. So in conclusion, I think we are moving into a new era. Of course, nation states will continue to be central, but an era in which cities as well will be important innovators, initiators of change, including on some of the most important issues that the world faces today, including climate and healthcare. So I hope you've enjoyed this dialogue. I have found new ideas, and we look forward to continuing the dialogue in future. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.